Hold on tight.
And just so for everyone who's listening or watching, so the reason Carrie, Chantel, and I are doing this is because we are all in prep for the same competition, the Wasatch Warrior, which is in April. But we do have more coaches. There's 10 of us. And about 6 of the team are also prep coaches, and we all kind of work together. So we're not the only prep coaches, but we are the only prep coaches right now who are all in prep prepping for the same show. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of just chat once a week, talk about each other's prep, talk about what we're dealing with, share information with you guys, and just kind of make it a fun way to share the behind the scenes of this process. So before we get going into our specific like prep protocols for each of us individually, I just wanted to kind of share with everyone kind of our overarching philosophy as a comp prep team. And if you guys have anything you want to add or that you've experienced personally as a coach or an athlete, please do. But basically what our philosophy is to do whatever it takes to help our clients be competitive to get to the next level. So to place at a regional show, go on to nationals and become a pro if that's what they want to do, while also optimizing their mental and physical health. So I think that there are a lot of coaches out there who are willing to do whatever it takes, but because there isn't that secondary part of also maintaining mental and physical health, what that looks like is a lot different. So for us, when we're doing whatever it takes, it may mean getting your hormones tested or taking a year to build muscle before we start a prep, or picking a show that's a little further out so we can add in diet breaks, or, you know, whatever the protocol may be that we can reach both goals at the same time, which I think since we work with natural athletes, it's essential. If we don't set preps up this way, long-term people are going to have issues, whether it be psychological issues or physiological issues, or they're just going to get to the stage and not do as well as they'd like, and they're going to be disappointed. I think a lot of new competitors, I don't know if you guys have ever done consults with clients like this, or if you ever felt this way yourself, but they're like, I don't really care how I look or like how I place or anything like that. I just want to do this for fun. And I'm constantly telling people, like, it's not fun to lose. Like, it's not fun to lose in a tiny bikini on stage where you're getting judged from first to last based on your body. Like, do a photo shoot, do something else. Like, in my opinion, anyone who wants to do a prep, they should be striving to place top 5. And, you know, it's not always the case, but for me, that's the goal. So even if I could prep someone in 12 weeks, and if I know they're going to get last place, to me, I would much rather prep someone for 52 weeks and get them into that top 5 placing. So that's what I believe makes us different, is being fully on board to be competitive, but then also looking at like, okay, well, in order to be competitive and to have you still be healthy at the end, this is what that's going to look like. In the end, I think it's actually more work, because how easy would it be to just put everyone on the same 1,000-calorie diet and an hour and a half of cardio and just kind of see where the cards fall and get everyone really lean and then go from there. So,
right. It takes like a more strategic approach. It's like, it requires good coaching, like just
and time. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I think part of the good coaching part too is like, part of what we do is hard because we have to really provide this emotional support and talk people through like, look, I know you want this right now. But even if we do this really extreme, like the end result's not going to be that great. And then you're going to have to deal with all of these side effects afterwards that are going to impact you for months or years. And in this culture, everyone just wants everything right now. So I think for me, I feel like I've had to really build my skills to like, get to the same place to help get on the same page where we're both working towards the same goal and feel good about where we're going. And it's changing people's perspective that prep happens in 12 weeks for everyone. And that's just how it goes. And then it's over, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, even sharing my story with people, you know, and they'll say, oh, well, how long did it take you to turn pro? Or, you know, what have you done? I think explaining to them, look, I've been doing this for 6 years. Just telling them a little bit of my story and being able to say like, look, I've done it this way and I've done it this way. Like the end result, and just showing them like the big picture. Like, yes, you want to step on stage. Yes, you want to place top 5. Absolutely. But would you like to take a little bit more time and set yourself up to be really healthy after? Or do you just want to hurry and get there? That's been helpful.
And I think I think really like a person, like a novice athlete competitor, what they really want in the beginning, I think, is to just love what they see, to look in the mirror and have that confidence. And so, they envision themselves on stage and they're like, okay, that's where I'm going to have my confidence. When I step on stage, that's where I'm going to feel confident. And it's like, well, actually, if you can actually get that confidence and not be on stage, that will be a goal, but you can get to that point without stepping on stage yet,
And like getting there, and then like if you do it right, you get there, and then you just keep getting better and better and better every single month and every single year for the rest of time. Okay. So I think that's the biggest difference too, is if we set you up right, you're going to just, like we talked about, make this a lifestyle. You're going to keep training, you're going to keep recomping, you're going to keep learning and growing, and just like it becomes a part of you in a really positive way where it's something you like to do. Whereas
right.
While you can be more aggressive and get to that place where you feel confident, if you don't go about it right, it's like, okay, well, do you just want to enjoy this for 3 weeks? Like, did you put in all this work to have it be a bucket list and die out and be worse than where you started? Like, to me, that's not.
They enjoy the whole journey of it. They start, they enjoy the different parts of it, everything that has to do with it. They find enjoyment in the building phase where lines are fading. They enjoy the cutting. They enjoy everything. Yes. And yeah, that's the best.
Yeah. For me as a coach, that's what I want. Like, I want if someone works with me for a prep for 9 months, I want when we're at 3 years after that they're just so much even better than they were at that 9 months. Like,
yeah,
and so many prep coaches,
stronger.
Yes. So many prep coaches, I think, like, what goes on social media is just like that 12-week transformation, when we don't always, a lot of these transformations have a really bad rebound, and honestly, just confidence, lifestyle, health for the next several years, if not forever. And even if it creates a great transformation, it's just like, I'm not willing to do that. I don't want to do that. That's not my passion. That's not what I'm into. Like, I'm fine with saying, look at this transformation. It took us 3 years. How you were talking about the time, like, my goal is to go pro this year. If I accomplish that goal, it will have been 9 years since my first competition. So, you know, just being okay with that and being like, I'm here to grow. I'm here to learn. It's okay to take time off, whatever. And so, yeah, it can be hard when people have such high expectation, especially things are so much more competitive now. So someone who just started lifting, to have a goal to compete and go pro when they've only been lifting for 12 weeks, it's just unreasonable. It's just not realistic. So Carrie, you start us off on what your off season or your setup or everything you did to get to this point to start prep. Because I think from the outside looking in, people look at a competitor and again, see that 12 weeks and they assume that's the whole process, where for all three of us and most of our athletes, the last 3 weeks is just, or the last 3 months is just kind of the peak, it's the exciting part, but it's actually not the most important part or the longest part. So I thought it'd be cool for us all to just kind of dive into that topic today.
Yeah. So, after my show in 2018, from then until, we started working together, I was maintenance or surplus. So, I really wasn't trying to do any dieting. I had rebounded and, had some binge eating problems and just didn't have a healthy relationship with food. And I knew that for me to fix that, I needed to be maintenance surplus. Like, the dieting just needs to go until I can have a healthy relationship with food, until I'm not doing the binge, restrict, I was done with that. And then, we started working together. I was at, maintenance calories. And then we did a little bit, we'd diet for a little while, then we'd come back up to maintenance. We'd do refeeds. So, with us, we started working together in May, and that was of 2020. And, we just did that. We did, we do a little bit of a deficit, then we do come up to maintenance, we'd reverse calories. And then I reached out to you in November and said that I was interested, what do you think about me being ready for Wasatch? And so we were in a really good place. So my prep dieting started in like Thanksgiving. And, you know, it was good. Like even like I'll post a picture on Instagram of people think they're going to get this 12-week transformation. You know, when we first started working together, we started working together in May until now. And just showing like, you know, that's 9 months. Like it's going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take, and especially to do it in a healthy way.
Right. Because obviously, of course, we could have done a more aggressive, if the plan was, hey, I want to lose 12 pounds. What's the timeline that we could do this healthily? Like maybe we could have hopped on and done something a little bit more aggressive to get there sooner. But again, our goal for that period of time, what you didn't mention also is that you were kind of considering getting pregnant and just wanting to be in a really healthy place, where our goal was we want to slowly drop fat, but more than anything, we wanted to improve your relationship with food, and we wanted to balance your hormones, and we didn't want to do anything stressful. So it's like, if the goal would have been at that point, I have this, like, I want to lose 12 pounds, maybe we probably still would have taken it a little slower. But if that was our primary goal, that might've changed our approach a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But our primary goal was relationship with food, balance out your hormones, have your body be physically and mentally as healthy as possible. So depending on what the primary goal is, it just is going to shift the protocol so much. And now that you've gone through all that, I'm curious, how that impacted your relationship with food and your health and getting you to the point where you felt ready to be in prep again, because coming out of a place where you were binging and having such a poor relationship with food, that's a pretty big shift.
It was. And I think a lot of it I learned about myself and what I did. I think being able to have that open communication with you and feeling comfortable to share if I'm struggling. You know, I shifted my mindset where before I wouldn't tell my coach what was going on, and this wasn't their fault. I didn't, you know, I thought they'd think I was a failure, or I had all this internal dialogue going on, and I just realized I needed to chill out. I needed to go back to the basics and just really get in tune with myself. And then, you know, I really do feel like I can trust you and I can talk to you. And so that was something really I had to deal with myself, you know. So if anyone is dealing with any kind of binging, anything, the first step you need to do is you need to not diet. You can't be dieting. You know, you have to heal that. You have to really learn from that. And so I did. It was just a lot of internal, I mean, 2020 was, you know, a lot for everybody, but it really, I feel in a really good place, mentally, physically, you know, emotionally. And I think taking that step back and me thinking, you know, I need to be healthy to prep for a baby. You know, I need to be in a good place there. That really allowed me to be in the place I am now, to be able to prep. And
just more of like a nurturing vibe, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're doing life, it's like almost like you were connecting with that like nurturing side, but for yourself, for what was for your baby, but it kind of turned into a thing for yourself too.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely. Yeah.
Is so cool. And like, even you said, like, I don't want to throw past coaches of yours under the bus. That's not my intention. But like, I do think something that we do differently, maybe it's because we're all female coaches. I don't know. Maybe it's because we do have like a therapist on staff and backgrounds in psychology, but I do think we try to really open the door to communication for our clients and let them know right from the beginning, like, this is going to be hard. You're going to struggle. I don't expect you to be perfect. That's not the expectation here. You will struggle. I just want you to talk to me about it so we can try to find a solution and figure out what we need to do.
Well, and I think a big part of that too is just our check-in process. So, you know, with most coaches, you're sending pictures, you're telling them your macros, your weight, and that's it. And then you get a 1-line, 2-line response. You know, we do, like I even said when we first started doing like, you know, my check-ins with you, like we ask a lot of information, you know, it's detailed. It's like, how's your bowels? How's like, you know, how are you emotionally? How's your stress? Like there's just so much more that goes in to our check-ins so that I feel like you're already asking those questions. So it's not like you have to pull them from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just, it is just such a different,
I feel like it allows, you know, when you're given the ability to, you know, answer all these questions, then it allows the coach to have different avenues that they can take to help you feel better, to help you be more successful, instead of like, well, this is all the information I have, so I guess do this, you know, when maybe they'll see like, oh, well, that's what the issue is, you know, that's what the issue is. Let's try doing this, you know, so it just helps. It's a more thorough approach. You know, it helps give you more options to help you be more successful.
Having that data you can look back on too.
Yes. And you can get ahead of it. So I think that's another thing. Like sometimes a coach won't even know that there's something really serious going on until it's too late. Where when we're looking at all the data, like with you, for instance, Carrie, I can see like, okay, well, I'm seeing notes that she's really sore. And I'm like, start looking at everything. And I'm like, oh, we need to do a deload, or we need to do a refeed, or so before things are completely crashed and we don't even know where to start, we're able to kind of get ahead of things and just start making these small changes so it doesn't have to get awful.
Yeah.
Which I think is really huge. So yeah. So in summary, basically, without doing so on purpose, basically spending the May to November getting ready to get pregnant, we essentially set you up for prep, even though that wasn't our primary goal at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Because we optimized hormones, we optimized relationship with food. We got your body fat down to where you were within 12 pounds or 15 pounds of your stage weight. And it basically set you up to be in a really good place to prep if that's what you chose to do. So
yeah. And the other great thing too, you know, we are in the future going to try to have a baby. And I think the nice thing about the way that we've set up and we're going to do prep is I can still do that. You know, that's still something that is going to happen.
Right.
You know, I'm not doing any damage that in the future will not let that happen.
Right. And just for data standpoint, do you mind if I share your starting weight when we started to get
absolutely. Yeah, it was.
So like we started in May at 140, right? So we're estimating your stage weight is 115. So that's a 25-pound difference, which, you know, about 115. But so same, if it would have been November and you were 140 and you were still dealing with your, some struggles with binge eating, relationship with food, body fat's obviously a little higher. In the beginning, we had concerns about your cortisol and your hormones because you were still doing a lot of HIIT cardio. So instead, here we were in November doing 0 HIIT cardio. Body weight was down to 125. Relationship with food was really good. We're like 9 months, no binges, right? Like all of these, everything was set up perfectly, where now it's like, okay, well, you have 15 pounds of fat to lose. You're doing 0 HIIT cardio, 0 regular cardio. So, I mean, just to touch on a more general thing, that's really how we want to start everyone's prep. 10 to 15 pounds away from stage weight, no extra cardio, calories in a really good place. And so I think that's the broader emphasis we want to get to today is just, if you're 25 pounds over stage weight, you're not ready to start prep. You're maybe ready to start a prep for a prep, but you need to get a little closer to that in order for us to execute it well.
Yeah. And I think even, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, I think this is a Fitbliss in general, not just me personally, but, you know, if someone's new, if they're a novice competitor, we're not going to do a 12-week prep.
No.
We're going to have at least 2 to 3 months of just seeing where you're at. We have to get you to a maintenance calorie for a couple of months before you even think about doing a prep.
Yes.
So I think that's one thing for people to realize too, is like, you know, now if someone's been a competitor before, we could look and see where they're at. If they're, like you say, in between that, you know, maybe they could do, but, you know.
To me, I think for a natural athlete, a 16-week minimum is a good prep. That's my opinion. Like someone like Chantel, an ectomorph who stays pretty lean year round, no matter how much she maybe there's some differences. Like we've gone both ways with Chantel, where we wanted to optimize her growth so much that we did the shorter prep. But again, you live and learn. And for her, I didn't like it in the end, because although we weren't prepping as long, she was dieting too hard at the end, where it was harder to fill her out. So that's obviously a case by case basis. But in my opinion, you know, a natural athlete who's doing the PEDs, they can do the 12-week preps. But for a natural athlete, I think 16 to 24 weeks is just the standard because we have to be more careful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love that. Chantel, do you want to talk a bit about your setup for this year?
Yeah. So for me, I usually always do intuitive eating in my off season. I enjoy that. I enjoy the mental break. For me, because I handle a fair amount of food, and can stay, 10 to 12 pounds above stage weight, it works for me. And I've found a lot of meals that are high protein, that are balanced with macros that I like to eat consistently. So, with food, I know I focus on, not being hungry. I can be ready for my next meal, but I know when I'm eating about 2,300 plus calories a day, which is always my goal, to be about maintaining that with food. And then I know my body, because my body needs a lot of food, that I will be fueling all the gains that I'm trying to work hard at making in my off season. So my off seasons, I do love competing, and my off seasons are usually about, 5 to 6 months long, where I really try to progress myself in weight, have lifts where I, each month I am really trying to see a progression in weight, because I know after, when I joined the Fitbliss team, I learned the importance of progression. So and especially for me, having a harder time putting on muscle, I know that is where I have to put all of my focus, because leaning down is pretty easy. It's pretty easy for me. I still have to dig deep, but I've got to work really hard in the building season. So that's where I put all my eggs in that basket of really trying to, capitalize on the high intake of food and energy levels being awesome. So that's what I did, this past off season. It was about, 5 to 6 months, but, just made sure I was getting in 4 lifts a week consistently every week, training hard. I really don't take time off. I don't take like a whole week off. I don't, take a whole month off, like being like, yeah, I kind of went to the gym on and off this month. No. I train every single week, 4 times a week. And I don't, in my off season, because I am lifting heavier and really trying to progress myself, training for a 5th day is never something I do. Those, 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days, and I'm good. And I feel like I get, really good recovery, and I can see myself progressing in weight when I do that. So for me, that is just my sole focus in my off season, is just staying really consistent with the training, and progressing myself. So
yeah, I think that's a big, I think the more experienced you are and the more we learn about being natural athletes and really feeling what it feels like to be well recovered.
yes.
I really once I go, I don't do very well going over into that 5th day per week.
I don't either.
So
Not typically, no.
Unless I'm dieting and I'm no longer unless I'm kind of acknowledging okay, I'm maintaining muscle at this point. I'm not really building, really this workout is more of a calorie burn thing. But but even then we can start having problems with losing fat if we're training too hard too. But when I first started, even taking 1 day off, I felt like I was losing time, or
I know. Yeah.
I was 6 or 7 days a week. And if I was taking 2 days off, I just felt guilty about it. And now I feel guilty about doing the 5th day. Honestly, I'm like, oh, this is going to ruin me.
Yeah, it's so funny. That's something, gosh, I remember, before joining Fitbliss, sometimes I would train 2 a day. I'd go to the gym twice a day because I was training clients on my own and stuff. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just go again and I'll train again. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't do that. You're missing out on that recovery, which is that recovery time is where your body is spending the time rebuilding and repairing and adding that shape. So it's I I am very much, but also with that, I think it's really important, you know, when you have the proper intensity and load, like when you're training, if you have that right, you shouldn't need to feel like you need to train for like a 5th or a 6th day, because you worked so hard for those days that you don't need, you know, you should work hard enough in those days and those training sessions, everything, you should have the right load. And I think that's a big indicator on, you know, maybe if you're selecting the right weights in the gym or really focusing enough, because if you're like, oh yeah, I could train again. Well, what did you do, you know, for your sessions? Did you train hard enough?
Which is also why I think sometimes more novice people can get away with a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Because a more advanced athlete is like getting so much out of every rep. This is also why more advanced athletes can do like 4 sets of 8 or 4 sets of 10 and get a really good stimulus out of it. Because they're maximizing every rep. Whereas someone who's probably going really like, you know, newer clients may grab like a 12-pound dumbbell for their RDLs, right? And so when they do 4x10, they're not really stimulating much growth or muscle breakdown. So like they maybe can do that 5th day. So yeah, I think it's just something cool to touch on. What I do these days is I usually give people 5 workouts, but then I'm like, you know, you have 5 workouts here and I do want you to do all 5 days. But like, if you get to the end of your first week, it's okay to start week 2 on workout 5. Like, all 5 workouts don't have to happen in this 7-day period too. I also think as humans, we get so attached to like 7 days in a week, like, you know, figuring out how you personally need to space out the workouts can be so key. But I was just talking to my husband about this. My husband tends to like to do a lot of training, a lot of cardio. He's always going. And I'm like, you know what, maybe another rest day would be helpful for your goals. It's just different personalities. I feel like when you're coaching athletes or you are an athlete, there are some people who tend to overdo it, who are like, you need to lift heavier, you need to push more, you need to do this. But then a lot of people who end up in the comp prep world, they're naturally go-getters. And it's more so us like reeling them in and helping them do a little bit less. So
yeah, which I think is another thing that's great that we do form check, right? So people have to send us our form videos so you can see, you know, if they're not if they're doing the 15-pound, you know, RDLs, then you can say, look, you need to push it harder. Like, you know, sometimes I think sometimes people are scared of heavy weight. They don't think they can lift as heavy as they actually can. And then once they do, they feel empowered and they're like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you know, I didn't think I could do that. And so that's, you know, another cool thing that, you know, that we do is that's a way to ensure that they are lifting and pushing each lift.
But then on the contrary to that, I also have had clients who I want them to sim film and then they do. And I'm like, you're going way too heavy.
Yeah. On the other side, like, absolutely.
Especially with the compounds. I think sometimes like, you know, I also, you guys know this, not everyone watching this might know this. Like I also compete and prep powerlifters. So I understand that mindset of wanting to like lift heavy, but particularly in prep, you know, if we're doing squats and deadlifts, we want to keep that work in the hips, in the glutes, in the hamstrings, in the legs. And sometimes people are going so heavy that so much of the work is going into their lower back, for example, which if you're trying to get a 1 rep max in a competition, it's maybe okay to rely a little bit on your lower back. But here in bodybuilding, where we're trying to stimulate muscle growth, like I don't want that work leaking out into the core, especially for bikini, where we're trying to keep that nice tight X frame. Like, so that's why the form checks are key no matter what. Cause I've also had other people, they're like, but you said I need to progress. And I'm like, but I only want you to progress within your good form where you're keeping tension where we want it. Yeah. So, and even me, I film all of my sets. You guys do too. We send them to people, we send them to each other for feedback. And, you know, it's just so great to kind of have that support to know if you need to pump the brakes or push the gas. Cause it's sometimes hard to find that perfect
threshold
intensity. Yes. So I'll go over my prep setup just briefly because I do want to kind of start wrapping this up. But kind of, I'm more so obviously in the boat of, well, I'm in my own boat, you know, because I had my baby in 2019. I'm not coming off of a prep last year, like you, Chantel. My last competition was in 2017. So when I hop back on stage, it doesn't feel this way, but it will have been nearly 4 years since my last competition. And just like what you were saying, Chantel, and I think, Carrie, you didn't mention this, but you're the same way. I have been training consistently at least 4 days per week, every single week, every single month, all 4 of those years through my entire pregnancy. And like even my postpartum period, one of my biggest regrets of my postpartum period actually is I got back to the gym and started training 6 days after Lucy was born. And
I didn't know that.
Hindsight's 2020. I felt good. I trained to 41 weeks pregnant, right? So I had this mindset, like we talked about, where I just wanted to get back in. I really wanted to compete. I wanted to get back to my groove. And in hindsight, I think that might've been something that contributed to my hormonal problems I had postpartum. I think my body was trying to recover and it was going through a lot, but I felt fine. So I was like, it's fine. I can do this. And I even have videos of me like working out my first workout. I was literally like wearing Lucy and I like was doing planks. And I mean, I guess some women don't do planks for like 6 months after, but so I was doing that. And then a couple days later, I was doing a workout and I'm like doing an overhead press and you hear Zach in the background, like, Lyndsey, be careful. Like you're doing too much. And I was like, it's fine. And so I had to kind of learn the hard way, right? Like sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way. Now I know when I have a second baby that I really want to give myself at least a month just to recover and let everything level out before I start doing that. But I guess my broader point was the entire process of being pregnant and being postpartum, I've always known my end goal was to get back to stage. And that was something that I really wanted to do. My last national show, I placed second place. So I was close to going pro. And I just have always felt, now we've had Shayla, Chantel, we've had other people go pro where I'm just like, man, I really want to experience that and kind of reach my potential. So where some people feel that setting up a prep is like that 12-week prep, I feel like my setup just really falls in line with the same reminder that you really are, it's a lifestyle and you're doing it all the time. And then the prep is just kind of where you're getting to stage lean. So I've been doing all my training, progressive overload, working on all my lifts since I competed in 2017. But at 9 months postpartum, I finally ran some blood work and realized that my thyroid I had hypothyroidism, my testosterone and my progesterone were really low. So I was dealing with a lot of hormonal problems. And I spent another 9 months after that getting on treatment for that. So basically hormone replacement therapy and getting on thyroid medication and continued training that whole time. But under the guidance of my doctor, I focused on eating at maintenance or surplus and not losing weight for another 9 months. So I actually had, maybe it was 6 months. I think it was 6 months. So I had about 15 months postpartum. I had my daughter and I weighed 165 and I weighed between 160 to 165 for almost 15 months postpartum. And my pre-pregnancy weight was 140. So that was really hard, mainly because similar to the FOMO you were having, Chantel, I was just talking to my husband about it. I never remember when I was, heavier than I'm used to, or, visually or physically a little out of shape. I never remember like looking at myself and feeling like I'm so disgusting. I hate my body. I never really felt like that. But I remember just really feeling like, man, I just really want to compete again. And I'm so far away because it's something that I love and I want to do as well. So I'm just grateful because I've done the work for so long and worked on body relationship that it never really was that hard for me at the time about being like loathing my body or hating it. It was just wanting to get back to the point that I could challenge it safely without it like being in an unhealthy place. So my prep setup was pretty long. It will be, so when I finally get to compete in April, it will be a week after Lucy's second birthday. So from my perspective, it's longer than I expected because obviously I was back in the gym 6 days later. I thought I'd be competing at 6 months postpartum, right? Like that was the path I thought I was putting myself on. But in the end, it will be 2 years. And this last year, basically from May, so same time as you, Carrie, I started this process in May. And basically I went from May until end of November, getting within shot of my stage weight. So I went from about 162 to 142 from May to November. So about 20 pounds. So once things were optimized, things started moving, and that was good. So I took a diet break about 6 to 8 weeks diet break, like mid-November to the beginning of January, to just let things kind of stabilize, since I was losing fat all year, and got within that about 12 to 14 pounds of stage weight. And now here we are. So why don't we just jump off actually here and have us each go over what we're doing right now in prep in terms of our setup and our rate of fat loss and all of that. And then Carrie, maybe within that, you can kind of compare what you're doing differently this time compared to past preps.
Sure. Yeah.
Before you were.
Yeah. So right now, as far as training goes, I'm lifting 4 to 5 days a week. I actually just started, I'm lifting 4 days a week, and then one day I'm doing yoga. It is sort of like every other week I do one that's just like mostly stretching, but then one's a little bit of a workout as well. So that's the least, you know, before I started working with you, Lyndsey, I was lifting 6 days a week. That's from when I first started. So lifting 6 days a week, you know, in some of my preps, I've done 2-3 hours of cardio.
A day
on 800 calories. This is when I was doing a meal plan. So I finally one day I was like, I just want to see what this is. And I was eating 800 calories, doing 2 hours of cardio. And that was hit on the stair stepper too.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember touching in with, you know, my coach was like, how are you? I was like, I feel like I'm dead. He's like, well, what do you do for cardio? I'm like, well, I'm doing the hit that you said to do. He's like, oh, you can't do hit. Like, you don't have much carbs. Like, I was like, well, now you tell me. So that was probably the hardest. And then on others, I was doing hit, you know, 5-6 days a week, 20 minutes. And my body just wasn't recovering. You know, I looked great. Yeah. I was super lean, of course. That's on top of my lifting. So
well, really, you were lucky though, too, right? Because some people, if they're doing that, they're not going to continue getting lean.
Right.
Like if that would have been your third year doing that in a row consecutively, it wouldn't have always worked.
Right. Well,
too,
and that's the thing is it only lasted for about a year. And then my body did definitely start, you know, inflammation was way up, no recovery, hormones weren't good. So, you know, I definitely have learned a lot. I've kind of been my own guinea pig of learning what to and not to do. So, you know, setting up for the prep, I wasn't doing any cardio, just steps. So right now, you know, we've chosen to do a little bit of more of an aggressive at the beginning where my body fat is higher. My hormones are going to be in a better place that way. So I've really focused on recovery. So right now I'm doing 4 sessions of 30 minutes on the stair stepper. And then I do about 10,000 steps a day, averaging. You know, my calories are pretty low right now, but
okay, you can share it. Let's share for everyone listening to. Why don't you go ahead and share your height, your weight?
Sure. Yeah.
Stage weight, all that.
And I guess we can touch base on people who are taller and shorter, but yeah, so I'm 5'2". Right now I just hit 125, which I'm super excited about. My last stage weight was 115. So I think we're going to have about 10 pounds, give or take. I do believe I have more muscle now, but we'll just have to kind of see how that plays out. But, you know, I was at 14 days without a refeed. I was at 1435 calories. And then we did a small bump.
And where's your protein at?
Protein's 140. Protein was 145. And it was 135 carbs, 35 fat. Right now we are at 1400 5 days a week. That's 140 protein, 130 carbs, 35 fat. And then we'll do a back-to-back refeed. And then protein will drop to 130. So more room for carbs will be 185 and then fats 35. So, I mean, I'm definitely I'm hungry, you know.
Well, for me, I'm your coach, so I know about your protocol, but I really prefer to keep cardio at 30 minutes or less.
Yes.
To me, once we start going over 30 minutes, it gets really hard to recover, unless it's like incline walking where you're going at like a really slow pace. Like for step mill and for you right now, like we've talked about, we've optimized your hormones. You're in a really good place. Your fat's a little high. So I'm like, let's go ahead instead of feeling like it's the last month of prep and we're like, all right, Carrie, you need to do 30 minutes of step mill every day. We are trying to get a little bit ahead of it, but to do 30 minutes of step mill on that like 1400 calories, that is a grind. Like
it's a grind and I feel it, but I mean, you already know this, but I have made significant changes in my body. And just, I sent you that comparison. I thought that was 2 weeks. That was 1 week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things are definitely changing and I'm happy to be doing this right now. You know, to get aggressive so that I feel comfortable. You know, I think we're all athletes and we're all competitors. So we all doubt ourselves a little bit, right? Like, am I going to be ready in time? But I feel like the plan we've chosen, I'm confident that I'll be more than ready in time.
Isn't it insane though to think like, okay, so for us, we're being really aggressive right now. I'm a little nervous about the cardio you're doing, really watching how your body's recovering, how you're feeling, and you're doing 1400 calories in 30 minutes of step mill. So isn't it insane to think about doing 800 calories in 2 hours of step mill?
I talk about it with my friend. Like we talk about, I don't know how I did it. Like I don't. And honestly, like that's the other part, which I think we all are, you know, focused on making our family, like we're prepping, our family's not prepping. Right. Mm-hmm. So when I was doing that, I was a zombie. I was, you know, it was I was living off of caffeine and fat burners and coffee.
Which is not great for your hormones.
No, which is terrible,
by the way.
But, you know, I make a huge effort that I'm choosing to do this. It's not going to affect my family. Mm-hmm. So even at this low amount of calories, even doing my stuff, I structure everything so that I still can have quality time. You know, so, I mean, when I get close to meal times, my husband will be like, all right, I think your mom's hungry. Let's go in the other room.
Or like my daughter like wants a bite of my food. I wait out and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. We're going to have to get you your own plate.
That's my water.
My husband gets so frustrated with me about my water. He's like, can I have a drink of your water? And I'm like, no, you can't. Like, I'm tracking my water. Like, and he's like, it's just water. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going to throw off my whole, like, no, you can't do it. But I do think touching on that, what you were talking about a little bit too, the other thing is if I felt that I needed to put you at 800 calories in 2 hours of step mill, which obviously goes against our standards and I wouldn't do, my thinking on that when coaches choose to do that is like, why not just pick another show?
Right. Well,
like, why not set you up differently and do a show further out and get a little closer to where you need to be and then start prep? Like, to me, if we're doing this 800 calories, 2 hours of cardio, like we've picked the wrong show. And so that might be hard for me to be like, you know what, Carrie, I know you really had your heart set on this, but I think we need to wait a little bit longer to set you up. That's hard. You might not like it, but at least I can prevent you from doing 800 calories and 2 hours of cardio. So, I mean, we're going to talk more about setup today, but just an extra side note on that. So do you have anything else you want to share about your current prep protocol?
No, I mean, it actually, you know, I'm hungry because, you know, I do have low calories, but it's manageable. You know, this prep is so much different for me too. And the fact that like, macros are, you know, I am eating a whole lot more whole foods, but that's because that's what makes me feel best. So I want to feel the best I can, even dieting hard, even doing all these things. But like you said, if I want to fit something in, I can. It's a choice. I just get to choose.
I kind of feel like once you go under 1600, you just have to rely on whole foods. You're never going to be full enough. Like,
it's just not going to give me, you know, it's not going to fuel my workout. Like, it's not going to make me feel good. So, you know, but I know the food's there and I can have it. I think that's another mentally thing that I've just changed is that like, you know, could I have a donut if I want to? Yeah, sure. I could. Or it'll be there, you know, it'll be there later. Like it's not, I'm just focusing a lot more on whole health. You know, hormones.
And it's balanced, you said. Even when I chose to do nachos last night, like, you know, I had 175 calories of tortilla chips, and that was fine. And I made that choice. But if I would have had 175 calories of rice or potatoes, I would have felt fuller longer.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. It's a choice.
So I'm like, I'm going to make this emotional choice and manage my food cravings and acknowledge that when it's midnight tonight and my stomach starts growling and I'm a little hungrier, that maybe I could have had rice or potatoes and it would have taken longer for them to digest and I would have felt a little fuller. So I think the more educated you are, the more you can kind of know the cause and effect and like pick your battles. Like I wouldn't do nachos every night because then every night I'm going to feel hungrier than I need to. And I'm not getting the vitamin A and the potassium and the other things I would get if I would have done potatoes instead. So, I think that's all really great. Chantel, want to share where you're at, what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I actually started
your height, weight, and all that.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm almost 5'6". So I'm 5'5" 3/4 to be exact. And currently I hit a new low of 123. So that was exciting.
Girl, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I hit it the past 2 days. So that's good. I started lightly tracking the week of Christmas just because I was like, I feel like tracking 2,000 calories. So I started then, and then I've progressed to Lyndsey as my coach as well. So we had progressed me then to about 1950, around the same for a while. And then the last week I've been at about 1,800 calories and definitely feeling the challenge with those. I have a pretty fast metabolism. And so, 1,800 calories is really not a lot of food for me. So I've been hungry, been feeling the challenge, but it's doable. And just like Carrie, I'm really trying to stay fuller by optimizing my diet with more whole foods, potatoes and rice and lean meats and stuff. And so that helps a lot. Cardio is I'm doing 2 sessions of, sorry, my son just came in. I'm doing 2 sessions of 15 to 20 minutes cycling. So pretty low intensity. And then 2 sessions of 7 minutes on the Stairmaster. And then just getting about,
sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
When I send you instructions like, hey, this week we're going to add 7 minutes of step meal, 2 days. Do you laugh at me? Not 5, not 10. I just want
a little bit. I'm like, wow, so exact. Like, why not 10?
Yeah.
But, and then, steps at just about, 10 to 12,000 a day. I'm not super, I make sure I get some good walks in every day and just keep my NEAT consistent, on the daily. But honestly, my energy's been really good. There's only been some points where I'm like, I am maybe a little low energy, but for the most part, I still am feeling really good. And I'm just kind of riding the high of that beginning part of prep where you feel really good. So but still have really great energy at the gym. I train early in the morning because of my kids and my husband's work schedule. And so I feel like getting that training in early in the morning helps a lot because got really good energy early in the morning. So that works really well too.
Do you eat before you work out in the morning, or are you relying more on most of your dinner and things like that? Hi, Jane.
I usually have a decent amount of carbs the last 2 meals of the night. So when I wake up, I've got a good amount of glycogen still in my muscles and I feel pretty good. So I always go on an empty stomach. I do have pre-workout and take my vitamins and water, but yeah, I don't need to eat anything really.
Or maybe you get your protein right, or after your workout, you do your first meal.
Yeah. So, and then my protein has been around 140 grams. That's what I get in daily. And then I try to keep fats around 50, just so I can, keep carbs higher, help keep my energy levels up and give me, the glycogen for my workouts and stuff. So
it can be such a hard balance, I think, sometimes managing how many carbs you want to have for energy and then how much fat, because the fat does really,
yes,
to me, the fat feels so nourishing and it just hits different, you know?
It does.
And we do know, like, for our prep clients, it's okay. For our prep clients, we always are trying to keep fat as high as possible. Like, that was the other thing. My first prep, I was on like 9 grams of fat, which we know now we have so much research, and as the evidence-based practices have really come into bodybuilding, that is nowhere near enough dietary fat for a woman to optimize her hormones.
Right.
That's why we never take our clients' fats below like 30 grams at the lowest. But I'm like you, if I'm free eating, like if I'm eating 2,000 calories and eating whatever I want, like I could easily do 90 grams of fat every day and be satisfied.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, give me that avocado, that nut butter, the sour cream, like all of that. It's so satisfying to the palate, you know? But that's when I make sure that I distribute like my fats in my meals, because it helps all of my meals taste better. Like when I distribute, I feel like it's really a really important component to a meal to make it more satisfying. So I do try to distribute my fat, you know, have a little bit of fat in all of my meals.
Well, that I'm sure just helps stabilize your hunger levels too. So you're not always feeling so hungry. But yeah, it is interesting to compare and contrast. So I'll throw mine out there too, just so we can kind of see what the three of us are doing differently. So I'm the tallest in the group. I'm just under 5'7". But my calories are actually really close to Carrie's right now. So I am doing 150 protein, 140 carbs, and 35 grams of fat. So our macros are even pretty similar, except for I have higher protein, mainly because I'm taller and my body weight is higher. My body weight right now is 142. So I'm like 23. Is that 23 pounds? I'm 20 something pounds above Carrie. So I need a little bit more protein. I'd say the biggest thing for me is I'm not currently doing cardio. It's more of a time thing. I am getting my steps in. I do 10 to 12,000 steps. So if I were doing cardio, my calories would probably be higher. I spend too long training in the gym. So I don't think it's so much that I'm doing so much, but I own the gym that I train at. So while I'm training, oftentimes people have questions or they want to come talk to me. So my rest periods are kind of long, which is nice because it allows me to really like push my progressive overload and work hard. But a lot of times I'm in the gym training for 2.5 hours every day. And so it was becoming a challenge to do that extra cardio. I do think there will come a time that I'm adding in more cardio, but for now I'm just relying more so on the diet. And I am dropping 1 to 1.5 pounds per week right now. So that's right on schedule. So just kind of rolling with the steps and then the lower calorie deficit. So, you know, just to paint a picture, hypothetically, like if I was doing 30 minutes of step meal 4 days a week, like Carrie, my calories probably would be up higher, like 1650 or something like that. But for me, for my lifestyle right now, it's been working a little bit better. I'm trying to be so careful with my output because I do have thyroid issues and autoimmune issues. Being older, just really trying not to step back into that zone, this prep, and really trying to optimize recovery. I worry a little bit about adding too much cardio or too much stress and then having my blood work or my hormones themselves start to adapt in a negative way. So I'm kind of trying to keep the cardio in my back pocket as a minimal dosage and only need to use it when it's really necessary. So dieting isn't as hard on the body as training can be. So that's kind of my protocol right now. You guys didn't mention this, but again, similar to Carrie, my plan right now is to be a little bit more aggressive on the front end so we can be more balanced on the back end when we are leaner and our hormones are starting to respond a little bit. So
I wanted to touch on, I didn't say, so my stage weight is typically about 116, 117, obviously before I fill out with food, but that is my goal weight to get to. So I'm roughly about 7 pounds away from that. So I don't have too far to go, but for me, I do like being maybe a tad bit more aggressive than I need to be in the beginning so that I can reverse into the show. I do really well. For me, being an ectomorph and handling so much food, I do so well reversing into a show. And that's what Lyndsey and I have found, you know, from my past preps, that is when I look at my best. So right now I'm trying to lose, you know, a half a pound to a pound a week is about what I'm shooting for. But, you know, the goal will be at least 4 to 6 weeks out, be able to start bumping food back up. So,
yeah, I mean, we have photos of like almost very similar peaking protocols, but with the biggest difference being like one of them, you were dieting pretty much into peak week, and the other one you were reversing into peak week. Any show you've done that you reverse into peak week, I mean, it's so fun to like be able to learn something new every single prep, but every prep you do, it's easier to start seeing trends, right? Like, cause we have the USAs where you turned pro, and then also the show that you did in Florida, your second pro show, like those two shows, and the Wasatch Warrior, all three of those shows, which were your best physiques ever. That's when we started realizing, like, what do these shows have in common? Every single one you were reversing for 4 to 6 weeks prior to the peak.
Yeah.
And it's just so.
I was just going to say, I'm excited to, you know, this is going to be our first time doing a show together. But I'm excited. Like, I think that, you know, we'll have to see how things go, but I'm hoping to do the same, to reverse into the show.
I
my
feel
body,
like that's always the goal.
Yeah. I just feel like my body is going to be so happy to where I'm not like, you know, just yeah, but my muscles are fuller. And, you know, and like we've all touched on too, like we're natural athletes. So the leaner you get, you know, you're going to lose more muscle. So that if you're able to keep that fuller, you know, you're going to look a lot better. So I'm really excited. And I've seen, you know, Chantel has just gotten better each time. And yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. But that was an important thing to highlight for Chantel though, because so Carrie, you're about 10 pounds away from your stage weight. It's been so long since I competed. I have no idea what my stage weight's going to be anymore. Like I said, I'm 142. I anticipate as low as 128. So if that's the case, then I'm still 14 pounds away. So that is why we're trying to lose that 1.5 pounds per week, although it's a little bit on the higher end. I don't want to get to 6 weeks out and be like, oh crap, I need to lose 12 pounds.
Right.
Because obviously that would be stressful. So yeah, we're all in a little bit different place, but it's also relative. Like Carrie, 10 pounds for you is, I haven't done the exact math, but percentage wise, it's probably a really similar percentage of body weight of what I'm dealing with too. You know, so even if your rate of fat loss is a little bit different in terms of pounds, the terms of percentage, we're still both probably going to be pushing it at about the same rate. So the one thing I wanted to touch on is just like for both of you guys and for myself, since we are within 10 to 15 pounds of stage weight and all three of us have gone through this experience before, we know what our stage weight is going to be. We already know that we're capable of executing the protocol. So I think since this is, hey, look, this is our 12 weeks out series that we're going to do for you guys. I just don't want to mislead people into thinking that everyone can predict their 12 weeks out like we're going to be able to this prep. Do either of you have anything to add on that or to talk about on that?
Yeah, I feel like for a novice competitor, there's a lot of anxiety involved in a first prep because they simply just don't know what to expect. They have this fear of like, well, I hope my body's going to respond like I would like it to, you know, and obviously, you know, you can push a show out, but, you know, as they're prepping, it's just kind of this fear of not even maybe understanding fully the fat loss process and how all of that works yet. And so I feel like a lot of peace happens after you get a first prep out of the way. Then you just, you know, having that understanding the second time around, just with my experience of coaching clients who have done a first show, their second show is always so much easier. So, and that's the beauty of, you know, if you're a novice athlete, don't be so rigid on a show maybe you have picked out. Have a plan B, you know, have something else being like, hey, I've talked with my coach. We've talked about the game plan. You know, this is going to be our game plan, losing about 1 pound of fat a week. And this is the show we're shooting for. But you know what? I'm open to doing this show as well if things don't. So I think just giving yourself a plan B, you know, as a novice athlete helps a lot.
Well, and you just can't control everything. So even if we're like, one of us, like, I hope this doesn't happen, but something may come up for one of us that we may be like, you know what, I can't do Wasatch Warrior anymore. Like a family member passed away or this or that or whatever. Like, so even for us, as though we feel pretty confident choosing this 12 weeks out, like to isolate someone down to the point that we don't have to consider like a life stressor or a vacation or other things that may change their execution or their rate of fat loss. Like it's really hard to, we're not machines. We're having to interact with an environment around us, which can be so unpredictable. And as a coach, that's the other thing. A lot of times I'm like, well, if you do everything perfectly for 12 weeks, that should put us there, but we can't be sure how well someone's going to be able to like withstand the rigors of prep.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is, you know, even on the coaching aspect too, like you're first working with somebody, you don't know how they're going to respond, you know? So yes, there are certain things as coaches that we're going to like set up and, you know, we have an outline, but we don't necessarily know if that's going to work either. So we both have to be flexible, you know, and I think that's why also like, you know, we're not having someone register for a show, you know, at 12 weeks out, you know, we're going to wait a little bit, you know, we're going to see how things go. And so that they're not, because, you know, people are excited too. On the other end, they're really excited. They're like, okay, like I've got my prep coach, I'm prepping, like I want to register, I'm ready. And sometimes you have to just let them like, you know, just slow down a little bit and, you know, take it week by week and see how things go and adjust
accordingly. Well, I think that's also why for us, I don't know if we mentioned this, but we pretty much want people to expect 3 to 6 months of building before they even start a prep, which can be disappointing. Sometimes people contact me and they're like, hey, I want to do Wasatch Warrior. That's 12 weeks out. And it's like, whoa. Like we have a lot we need to do before we start an actual prep, like getting the food. You touched on this earlier, but getting the food intake up, getting cardio down. And again, getting you within 10 to 15 pounds of stage weight is crucial. So, yeah, I'd say my advice for a novice competitor is just don't think of prep as a 12-week process. Honestly, I think people should play it safe and think of it as a 9-month process, as at least if it's their first show. Unless, like we have a couple of competitors who are coming up right now who played sports their whole life, like you, Carrie, who they were athletes. They've been training seriously. If you're someone who's been an athlete your whole life and you've been training seriously for 5 years, you could potentially do a 12 to 16 week prep like an experienced competitor. But
right, because they have that foundation. So they already have the foundation of lifting, of working out. They have muscle maturity.
And then there's even people who've been working out for 5 years, but they haven't been doing it right. You know, they haven't been doing progressive overload. They've been doing too much cardio. They haven't been eating enough. So even if you have been training for 5 years, that doesn't necessarily mean you're set up to do a bodybuilding show.
Right.
I think with bikini in particular, a lot of women reach out and they have been training and they think they're ready. But when we really look at them, they don't have hardly any muscle, you know, because they've been dieting, they've been doing too much cardio and they haven't been pushing themselves in the gym. So it's not a skinny contest. You know, it's not who can lose the most weight. We need that shape. And it's going to take time to get there. So yeah, the setup is definitely key.
And just
okay, guys.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, you Chantel, go, you go.
One last thing. People totally underestimate the posing. It takes months and months of practice for posing. You don't just practice it in 4 weeks, like the last 4 weeks of your prep and you're good. Posing is everything to showcase your body. So starting posing, you know, no later than 16, like you need 16 weeks just to learn the poses, you know? So, I mean, longer, but anyways, just wanted to touch on that. But
yeah, that's why, I mean, we're going to cover so many different things in this series, but, I think ultimately just having a coach who understands the full spectrum of the posing, the hormones, the muscle building, the dieting, the stage look, like everything that goes into it. Because it's so much more than just doing 2 hours of cardio and being on 800 calories for 12 weeks. Like that's not setting you up for success. And even if you're just looking at training and nutrition, that's just such a small percentage of what prep really is. So Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you to anyone who's out there listening to us. Be sure to leave comments, notes, anything you want to hear us talk about. This is just basically your introductory episode. We're going to go over lots of topics over the next 12 weeks. We're planning on just meeting every 2 weeks, talking about something new and taking you guys through this journey with us all the way until we get to the stage on April 17th. So here we go. All right, guys, are you excited?
Yes. I'm so excited. This is going to be really fun to, to have this for us to see, and to follow along our journey, and then other people as well. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. So thank you guys for your time, and we'll just talk next time.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.